And welcome back to building a Viking sword. This is part 2. We're going to continue where we left off from part 1 of building our handle. With edge selected, bridge on, we're going to go ahead and just bridge across all of these guys in here. We'll be basically doing the same thing on the bottom here as we did on the top. Right mouse click, turn off bridge. Grab an edge, hit ring, connect, make sure it's on 1. We go to vertex, turn on target weld, and weld closed our open triangle. Now, to get a handle out of this, we could add a cylinder in, but it's a little more fun extruding watertight pieces. So, we're going to get off the move tool so I don't accidentally move these. I'm going to hold down Control, and grab these polygons in here. Now we're going to hit Inset, the dialog box for Inset. Now you'll notice what's going on here. These look a little wonky if you look at these edges. What's happening here? So I'm going to drag a box around this and hit 0. Tell it OK. That creates an extra polygon all the way around here, but this is still sitting in place. Now I can fine tune it very easily with our X and Y handles on the scale tool. We're going to go to vertex, click off, grabbing these 3, or you can take edge, click these 2 edges, whichever way you think is faster. Hold down Control, hit vertex. We're going to scale those in both directions. Then with the last 2 vertices, we're just going to scale those back out just a touch. Not a lot, just enough to give it a little bit of a rounded look. Now we're going to go back to polygon, and that's what an inset should look like. Unfortunately, software is what it is. So we're going to go ahead and hit extrude. It shoots off into outer space because its default is 10. Just hit OK. It doesn't matter. We go back to our move tool and shorten this up. Do not make this do not make this as short as a historically accurate one. When you get this into a video game, your character's hand will clip through both the pommel and the hilt, the crossguard, the quillions. It will clip, so keep it a little bit longer. Now what we're going to do is take our scale tool. This edge will go X to Y. Let me get over here. This edge here will go X to Y. This one Y, X to Z, and this one Y to Z. So you can see how it'll scale it in different directions. And what we want to do is in the middle, give a uniform scale down to about 80%. It's not a huge taper yet, but we don't want the taper going this way too far, just a little bit. Now then we're going to take this on the red and drop it down to about 80%. That gives us a better taper. If the whole handle looks too big, hit grow. That'll bring the vertices up, and you can scale it in whichever directions it needs to be scaled. Hit shrink, so we only have those bottom guys, and hit delete. Now, normally I'd just make another cylinder, but since we already went over attaching a cylinder, we're going to do this in a slightly different method. Coming in here in the front, I'm going to drag a box around all of the sides of the cylinder and the bottom. So I have all of these and all of those without the top. Hold down Alt, drag a box around the handle. Now we only have these guys. I'm going to grab my move tool. While holding shift, I'm going to grab hold of the Z handle and push down. I can let go of shift now. It says clone to element. If you want it to an object, to its own object, you can go that route, but for this, since we're just attaching it back on, we leave it clone to element, tell it OK. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is to just show you a handful of different techniques in modeling. We're going to pull it down, clear out of the way. Now hold down Alt and deselect the cylinder so you only have your bottom. Again, that's just to show different methods. What am I looking for? Detach. Everything's in the wrong position. Hit detach, tell it go ahead, clone to element. Okay. Now, one of the things that I normally do right off the bat that I haven't done so far is turn on the angle snap. It's between your snap grids and your percentage. If you turn that on, now we can grab our rotate tool, grabbing the X, and we just rotate it. You'll notice down in the bottom, keep an eye down here. Let me undo that real quick. Keep an eye down here on the X. You rotate it to 180. We go back to our move tool. You can leave this on, by the way, it doesn't affect anything else we're doing. And drag this up until they line up. Again, these don't have to be exact. You notice the more you zoom in, the farther apart they are. It doesn't matter, because now we're going to vertex. We're going to drag a box around those top vertices. We hit Z, that puts them all back in line. Then we hit weld, that attaches them again. If you have vertices that are really, really close together, super high poly models, things like that, and you just hit weld and all of a sudden a whole bunch of them scrunch up, let's undo that for a second. Hit your weld dialog box instead and drop that down to 0. Then just click up once. Notice on here 001 is enough to change it before 175, after 157. That's enough to weld those. And you can do that by increments, so the ones you want to weld will actually weld, and others that are close by don't get damaged. And we go back to element, select that, element, select the whole thing. We're going to move it up some. We're going to move it up a little bit more than we need. Now we're going to scale it uniformly in the center until these are pretty close. If you can't quite tell, you can hit Alt X. That'll make your model see-through. So now what we want to do is scale it inward on the X a little bit until those are pretty close. And we'll go ahead and scale it outward here. And then take a look at it. That's way too wide still. So I'm going to go into Edge. Take a look at this. First thing I want to do, we don't have any bottom on this, okay? So I can tilt it at an angle like this. I can see that outside bottom edge there. I drag it a box around these two edges. I hit loop, so I have just the edge on the handle and the adjoining edge here. Hold Control, select vertex, turn on our weld box, and turn that up until all of those get welded together, which they are. 157, 147, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it. Tell it OK. Now what I want to do is take all of these edges out here and these guys out here. I'm avoiding the handle. This is kind of risky when you're new, but we can see our big one out here, that's our cross guard, and our little guy inside there. So we know that if we select just those two and just these two. Another way you can do this, if you're not sure, is hit edge, turn off that, or click off that, hit one of these, hit ring. Now you can hit control vertex. It'll give you everything except these inside guys, right? So then what we can do, hold down control, select a box around those two, control, box around those two. We're guaranteed to only have the outside ones without touching the inside. And we want to, we're going to go ahead and scale this in since it's drastically too big, to where these guys are almost lined up together. You can see in here where they're almost on top of each other. And that gives a much more believable width. Now, you can leave it narrow, you can do a little bit wider. If you intend on curving this, go ahead and leave it slightly narrower as it is now. Now what we're going to do is go back to edge, click off, and hop off our scale tool, bridge, and go ahead, do the same thing here. Oops. Get these guys closed up. Now we're going to do something a little different on this once we have it bridged and closed, just to give us some extra polys to play with. Right mouse click turns off bridge, select ring, connect one, vertex, target weld, get that closed up. Whoops, that closed up. Now, this is what we're going to do that's new. Coming down here to expand it. Right mouse click turns off target weld with vertex selected. We're going to turn on cut. We're going to click this one. You'll see it's the one that looks like it's free floating out here. Here to its counterpart over here. The reason I didn't do connect 3 times and then weld these is because this vertex then gets sunken in here and you have to mess around with it. It's just a lot quicker to click this, cut. You'll notice how this changes. You have a large square here and it'll show you where the lines are, or on the edge, and then it turns it into a tiny plus sign on the vertex. Right mouse click to turn cut off. Now what I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to select a box around all those vertices at the bottom. Sometimes these will cut and add an extra vertex virtually on top of one of the others. So we're just going to select those guys and hit weld once. That'll guarantee that they're not screwed up. Now we go back to vertex, or I'm sorry, to polygon. Drag a box around. This will give us sides plus bottom. Then hold down Alt, drag a box off, so we only have the bottom. You better get out of there so you can. There we go. All right. Now we're going to inset this. Again, same thing. It can get kind of wonky when you have various shapes like this, so we'll turn on inset, leave it at 0. If it goes back to 10 or 1, just drag a box around that, hit 0, grab the arrow. You can drag all the way down either way. Tell it OK. Now we can hit our scale and scale in a little bit in both directions. Now this is the part where you can get totally creative and fancy. You can spend days finding different types of hilts for Viking swords that you might want to reproduce. We're just going to do a pretty basic one for this. I scaled it in. I'm going to hit the dialog box for extrude. Off into outer space it goes again. Now, you'll notice you can't drag it down to 0. It goes the opposite way. So what we're going to do is just, let's try 1. Hit enter. That's too high. So we're going to fine tune it by dragging it down. Let's go 4. Hit apply, it'll do it again. And we're just going to do that twice, so we have 3 rows. Tell it OK. Now we're going to hit Control Vertex. So we have all those vertices. Then grow. Shrink, we'll shrink it back down later, and we're going to flip back and forth through those. Grow until it hits this rack up here. We want that included. That's going to be our base anchor. Now we're going to add an FFD box. This is where we can take advantage of the number of points. For our width, we're going to go, let's see, 4, 5. Try 5. Let's try 7. Length, we'll bring that down to 3 because that's just the sides. And height, we'll leave it 3. There we go. And we have what could be construed as a confusing mess. The reason we want to have at least 3, so we have this, is so we can play around with the center. Turn on our handles. The first thing I'm going to do is drag a box around the bottom and scale it in. You'll note it bulges out up here. This is similar to face gen and how the FFD works, where it'll bulge out and bulge in. It tries to be intuitive, and for the most part it is. Click off those. I'm going to grab these in the middle. Leaving the center and the outsides. And I'm going to take the move tool, and we'll pull those down. Let off. Whoops. Let's grab the center and pull back up a little bit, grabbing these outside guys. Again, this is something you could probably spend a couple of hours playing in here. It can end up looking like a crazy mess, but basically what you're doing is just trying to get a fancy shape. Now, what we want to do is grab our center, drag our box around those. It looks like that's strictly the bottom. And I didn't grab enough. There we go. I'm going to take that and give it a tug down. I didn't really intend to make the Batman symbol, but that's okay. Now, it looks a little screwy right now, but that's okay. I'm dragging it a little more drastically than what it needs to be. Right mouse click, collapse to, go back to vertex. Now we hit shrink once. That removes our anchor, so we have all of these guys. We're going to use the relax tool. Turn on relax. Now this, it doesn't have any effect on this particular mix. On many others, if you're doing something that's symmetrical and you're only working on half of it, the keep boundary points fixed will have an effect. But by default it's 0.05 with one iteration, and that seemed to round it out pretty decently. And I think for that we'll keep that. Right mouse click, collapse to, and it's pretty generic. So let's go to vertex. Well, yeah. we're going to add in, oops, grow first. Now let's add in, what is it? FFD box, set number of points, width 5. I'm not going to worry about the others. 5 adds pretty close to what we're looking for. Select the handles. We're going to grab all of them on every other one inside. And use the scale tool to scale them in some. You'll notice that it's pretty much trying to scale in almost the whole thing, which is fine. We can go back now and grab the alternating ones and scale those out to get our width back. Scale it out a little more than you need. Whoops. F. Right mouse click, collapse to. Go ahead and hit relax again. Whoopsie, nope, undo. Vertex. Alright. Shrink once. Relax. That gives us a little more contour, a little more taper. We'll leave that collapse too. And for this demonstration, I think we'll call that good. I'm not sure how long I took on this video so far. I haven't been really paying attention to the time, so I'm going to call it. And on the next one, we'll go over the unwrapping. So let's bring this guy down, Alt-X, so we can see it again. And you know what I haven't done this entire time? File, save as, give it a name. 1908. Enter. When you're doing saves, if you want to make extra iterations, by the way, I will go over some settings with Max that you'll want later, but for now, File, you can hit Save. Now you'll notice Control S says it works. There have been issues ever since Max 8 with various Microsoft operating systems where Control S won't. It works in Vista. It didn't work in XP on many laptops. There were all sorts of issues with it. So I always manually save. Either hit save, or if you want to, let's say, experiment with something, you can hit File, Save As, and if you click this plus sign, it'll change that number. Like this, I put Viking 08, it'll change it to Viking 09. Save you a different iteration. Okay, we'll be back on the next video for unwrapping.